years now. Just a little quick intro about me. I have 4 children. 2 of them have special needs, and that is really what drives me to do this work. Like I said, I've been doing this for 3.5 years on our children's SSI team. I can answer both general and specific questions about children's SSI. I can answer some general questions about adult SSI, as well as some general questions about other services that legal aid provides. And any specific questions or anything that I can't answer, I am happy to send an email to staff members on the other teams at legal aid to get their input and figure out the answers to any questions that I cannot answer. My info is in the chat. You can type questions in the chat. You can ask questions via audio. This works really well when it's an interactive discussion rather than just a dry presentation of like me talking to you. So feel free to ask any questions. I am here until the last person leaves. This is the only set thing that I have to do today. So I am around to answer any questions. I will share my screen. I'll start the PowerPoint. Let's see. Do this. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay. So I like to start with some information just on the general legal aid background. I know that legal aid is a term that is often used as like an umbrella term for organizations that provide free legal services. To distinguish, we are Legal Aid Society of San Diego. We are a specific organization. We were founded in 1953. There are other nonprofit legal services agencies that we, work with them. We can provide contact info if they are doing things that, providing services that we are not. However, we are Legal Aid Society of San Diego. We have 3 offices in San Diego County. We are located in Mission Hills, which is where the SSI team is. It's near the airport. We have an office in Southeast San Diego, and then we have an office in Oceanside for prospective and current clients up in North County. Our mission is to improve lives by advancing justice through effective, efficient, and vigorous legal advocacy, outreach, and education. We help low-income clients all over San Diego County access the justice system. We are made up of 11 different teams. And each of them have various eligibility requirements. They vary slightly based on how it is that they are funded. However, all of our clients are low-income clients in San Diego County. That is true across the board. So I also like to provide information on the other services, the other teams at Legal Aid, because a lot of times I have prospective clients come to me needing help with more than one legal issue. So in that event, I'll be talking with someone on the phone. They'll say, oh, I have this housing thing going on, or I need some help with a family law issue. I can send an email to one of the staff members on our community response team, ask whether it is that this is something that another team can help with. And then from there, we can coordinate, a collaborative services to help the prospective client get help if we are able to provide help with the other issue that's going on. If not, we can provide information to refer to the San Diego County Bar Association Lawyer Referral Information Service, or, just provide some general guidance as to how it is that the person could find help with that other legal issue. But like I said, we do provide services across all 11 teams, across all of San Diego County. We are called the Office of the Public Attorney. We're kind of everything that the public defender does not do is kind of, how it is that we provide services. Like I said, we have a community response team. They do all of our intake work. We have the Consumer Center for Health Education Advocacy. They do a lot of Medi-Cal issues. They do IHSS now as well. We have a consumer protection team. They deal with fraud issues. They deal with predatory lending issues. We have a family law team dealing with custody and divorce matters. We have 3 housing teams at Legal Aid. We have a housing discrimination team, we have an unlawful detainer team, and then we have a public housing and tenants' rights team. Our income maintenance team will help folks get onto CalFresh, CalWorks, Medi-Cal. those public benefits. And then as of January 1st, 2020, they also have started providing special education services. And so I have quite a number of prospective clients come to me needing help with SSI, also with special education services. So it's super easy for me to refer clients to that team as well. We have an individual rights team that focuses mostly on immigration. As you can imagine, that team is very busy. But if I have a prospective client come to me who has a question about how it is that an application for SSI for their child would affect their immigration status, super easy for me to send an email and get a staff member from that team to answer my prospective client's question. We have a mental health team. Our pro bono team operates free clinics at the courthouses throughout San Diego County. They have a conservatorship clinic, a guardianship clinic. They do some restraining order clinics, and then they have an unlawful detainer clinic as well. So those services are really great because people can go to the courthouses. They can talk with legal aid staff members there who can walk them through the process of filing the documents that they need to initiate their legal claims. And then the staff member will make sure all of the I's are dotted, all of the T's are crossed, and send them on their way so that they can file the actions by themselves. We don't actually represent in those matters, but we put together, like we gather all of the information, we type it all out, we provide a really pretty package, and then we hand it to the person for them to go file, go serve copies, and represent themselves. We have obviously the SSI team. We have an adult SSI team, which is made up of about 20 staff members. And then we have a children's SSI team, which is made up of 4 of us. Like I said, we're out of our Mission Hills office. And then we have our tax team. They can help with federal tax issues. That's how their funding contract is written. They can also help with any accompanying state tax issues as long as there is an underlying federal tax issue as well. Like I said, we have offices in 3 locations in San Diego. We now are providing all of our services all across legal aid via phone. However, once we are able to resume in-person meetings, we can meet with folks at any of our offices. And then in the past, we have routinely met with clients at libraries throughout the county, at law libraries in the courthouses, at various coffee shops throughout the county. Wherever it is that our clients are, we can go to them. Location and transportation are never a barrier to our services. I've been to more Starbucks than I can count while working at Legal Aid, far more than I ever went to before having this job. So I never want a client not to be able to have help with their SSI claim because of where it is that they live. So a little bit more about the SSI team. On the adult side, we can help adults apply for SSI and SSDI benefits. We can help in SSDI cases as long as there's an underlying SSI claim. And I will go through a little bit more what the acronyms mean, but just know that we are the SSI team and there needs to be an underlying SSI claim in the adult disability cases. With regard to children's cases, children don't work, so there are no SSDI claims for children. There's just SSI claims. So we help parents, guardians, and caregivers of children with disabilities apply for SSI benefits. In the past, I've also helped families apply for IHSS benefits. While I'm not currently doing that, like I said, the Consumer Center for Health Education Advocacy is now doing IHSS claims, so we can tag team cases, that way. The Children's SSI team has provided legal services to over 700 families. We've secured benefits for over 300 families. Our clients have received over $875,000 in back pay. And we have helped our clients secure monthly benefit amounts of over $130,000. So that is not chump change by any means. So what is SSI? SSI is supplemental security income, or more simply, it is federal income support targeted for families caring for children with disabilities. It is the only source of federal income that is specifically for low-income people with disabilities. It is a financial benefit. We'll go through, what the benefit rates are, I think, on the next slide. But It is primarily a financial benefit that helps families put food on the table, helps them pay their rent, mortgage, transportation costs, any other disability related expenses, out of pocket copays, activity fees. Basically, Social Security Administration gives a lot of leeway to folks who are caring for kids with disabilities with regard to the ways in which they can use their SSI benefits. As long as they are using the money to care for their disabled child, then Social Security Administration will say, that's fine. If you're taking your kids' SSI money to the casino, you're probably, going to get yelled at for that. But with regard to, anything else, like I said, food, rent, transportation costs, any out-of-pocket expenses, those are all okay. Like I said, SSI is a needs-based federal program, and the non-monetary, the main non-monetary benefit of getting SSI is that you automatically qualify for Medi-Cal. Obviously, most people who come to us and are wanting to apply for SSI for their kid, the child is already on Medi-Cal, but in the event that they're not, once they are granted SSI benefits, they are eligible for Medi-Cal. SSI is the acronym that we use. Social Security Administration, or SSA, is the, federal agency that runs the program. We deal with, on the adult side, SSDI claims. That's the disability insurance public benefit that is based on the work credits that the person with the disability has accrued. There's also like survivor's benefits and other retirement benefits. We don't help, with any of those cases. If I have a prospective client ask me about it, I can, give them the contact information for the local Social Security Administration field office. I can direct them to a website. But, with regard to anything other than SSI, we are not experts. We don't help with retirement or survivor's benefits cases. And then obviously on the adult side, they know how to do an SSDI claim as long as there's also an SSI claim. I do not know personally much about SSDI. So if I have any questions, like if I'm asking any questions, I'm going to need to, pass that question off to the adult team. But our job at Legal Aid is to help parents, guardians, and caregivers of children with disability apply for SSI benefits. So that's where our expertise lies. Like I said, SSI is a federal monetary benefit. And so in the state of California in 2021, the maximum benefit rate for a child with a disability is $859. Now we distinguish in 2021 and in California because the maximum rate goes up between $10 and $15 every year. And the maximum benefit rate varies from state to state. The federal government sets it at about $790. And then states can choose to add more to that if they would like. As you can see, California adds a little bit more. So in the state of California, a child with a disability with no other income in the home would stand to receive $859 once they are granted SSI benefits. For adults, that benefit rate is $954 a month. Same thing, goes up between $10 and $15 every year. And as other income in the home increases, that maximum benefit rate will decrease. So what are the eligibility requirements for children's SSI? So the first four on this slide are Social Security Administration's requirements. We can't get around them. The last two are legal aid specific requirements. So with regard to age, Social Security Administration will grant SSI benefits from any age from birth up until 18. We can take an application from the time the child is born up until the month before the child turns 18. Once the child turns 18, they will be reevaluated automatically under the adult SSI standard, which focuses on, are you disabled and can you work? With regard to children's SSI, they don't ask whether you work. Children aren't expected to work, but once you hit 18, they focus on whether you can work. I will absolutely take an application up until the month before the child turns 18. I have had people come to me and say, oh, my kid turns 18 in 6 months. I called Social Security Administration. I wanted to get the ball rolling. I wanted to apply. And they said, just wait until the kid turns 18. That is, I think, their way of, trying to get out of doing that work. 6 months before a child turns 18, the child is eligible for with no other income in the home, $859 a month for 6 months. I would absolutely take that application as long as the parent is willing to do it, knowing that we're going to have to just fill out more papers once the child turns 18. But Social Security Administration tries to talk you out of it, tries to tell you to wait until your kid turns 18. I would never do that. As soon as you are ready to apply, as soon as your child is eligible, I think that you should apply. And I am, willing to advocate for you and support you through that. Obviously, it ends up being the parent's decision, but I am here to do the work in the event that they do want to apply. With regard to income, Social Security Administration looks at the gross income of the parents in the home. They look at the number of parents in the home, and they look at the number of children in the home who do not have disabilities. They have come up with a 7-step, what they call deeming calculation, which takes into account all of the income in the home. It looks at the type of income, it looks at the number of parents, it looks at the number of other kids, and it takes 7 steps. And at the end, the result of that formula is what that person's monthly benefit rate would be if they were to get SSI. So when prospective clients come to me, I ask them about their sources of income. I ask them about the number of people in the home. I do this calculation, and I can say at the outset, okay, Jane, if you apply, your child is going to get $700 a month. And I like to be able to provide that to my clients, because then they know when they are getting involved in this process, what it is that they stand to gain if and when their child is approved. With regard to resources, Social Security Administration also looks at the resources available to the parents in the home. They look at the number of parents. In a 1-parent household, a child is eligible if the parent has less than $2,000 in resources. With certain exceptions, they will allow you to have 1 vehicle that they do not hold the value of against you or the child. And then they will rather exempt 1 home as long as you live in it. If you have like a rental property that you're generating income off of, they will hold the value of that property against you. If you have a home and for whatever reason are not living in it, they will hold that against you. If you have a second vehicle, they will take into account the value of the vehicle that is worth less. So anything beyond 1 home and 1 vehicle is considered a resource that is deemed to the child. What I tell most of my clients, because most of my clients don't have other pieces of property or second vehicles, they just want to know, like, how much cash do you have in the bank? What do you have in terms of accounts that can easily be converted to cash to provide care for your child? Within a 2-parent household, that limit is $3,000. Once again, the same exceptions apply. These numbers have been the same since like the 1980s. They are not likely to change anytime soon, unfortunately, because they are incredibly low resource limits. But these are just the numbers that we have to work with. Once again, this is Social Security Administration's requirement. This is not legal aid's requirement, and there's nothing that we can really do to get around it. What I tell clients when they come to me is, I don't require that you show me pay stubs or bank account statements, but you need to be honest with me and provide me with accurate information, because, even if you lie to me, Social Security Administration is going to figure it out. They are going to want to ask for bank statements and pay stubs, and they're going to see if you are over. So you might as well just tell me the truth and put down the truth on the initial application, because you're not going to get very far by lying. Same thing with citizenship. The Social Security Administration requires that the child, because it is a benefit for the child, is either a U.S. citizen, asylee, refugee, or LPR. The citizenship status of the parent does not matter. However, Social Security Administration, we are providing this information to them. We cannot guarantee what it is that they do with information on undocumented parents. We obviously have our immigration team and are able to have those folks answer any questions that parents might have about the effects of an SSI application for their child on their own citizenship status. We do not provide our client information to any other nonprofit nor any other agency, whether it's state or federal. We just can't guarantee what Social Security Administration is doing with it. I have not personally had any issues with any applications I've filed, but like I said, we just cannot guarantee what it is that is going to happen. hopefully, maybe the tide is turning. But like I said, we have our immigration team. They are ready and willing to help answer any questions. With regard to residency, this is a legal aid requirement. The child and the parent must reside within San Diego County. Obviously, we're Legal Aid Society of San Diego. This is our requirement. Can't really get around that. And the child must have a medical condition that is currently being treated. This is not a Social Security Administration requirement, like technically, but if we want to get the child approved, the child does need to be in treatment. The child needs to have current medical records from providers saying that he or she is disabled. So we require that the child is in treatment. Our contract with the county focuses on primarily mental health diagnoses. However, we can help children, just like our requirement is mental health, or rather medical condition that is currently treated. Most of our cases are mental health conditions. Most SSI cases across the board are mental health conditions. So that is like the focus of our contract, but we can help any child with a disability as long as they're in treatment. So with regard to the income limits in the household, this is a chart that is meant to provide, good estimates of the income limits just to, for the purposes of estimation. Obviously, if somebody comes to me and tells me that like their income is double that, we know that even once that we get down and do the calculation, you're not going to apply, or rather you're not going to qualify. But, as long as the income is under these, we can do the calculation and we can tell the client exactly what the monthly benefit rate would be. On the left-hand side, what you see is the number of ineligible children in the household. Those are children who are not eligible for SSI. This chart goes up to 3 ineligible children. It is available online with up to 6 ineligible children. So if that is needed, I can, reference that. On the left-hand side, what you'll see is when all income is earned in both a 1-parent household and 2-parent household, this is gross income, and earned income most typically is wages through employment. On the right-hand side, we see when all income is unearned, both in a 1-parent household and 2-parent household. Unearned income we see most often is state disability, unemployment benefits, and workers' compensation. So, if someone comes to me and says, there are 2 of us, we have 2 ineligible kids, we earn $3,000 a month, I can consult this chart, see that their income falls below the $48.25 per month, and I will know, okay, you're going to be eligible for SSI. We can do the calculation. I can tell you what you stand to receive. So with regard to filing the initial application, who can actually file for SSI for a child? I would say most of my clients are natural or adoptive parents. I do have a few guardians, typically grandparents, and then a handful of family members or other caretakers. Social Security Administration really just wants like the adult who is primarily responsible for the child's care. That can include, if there's no one else, a case manager, social worker, parent partner, group home manager. I don't think any of those cases, but those folks are, able to apply for SSI for children, as long as they are, the best suited person. On the initial application, there are sections to provide explanations as to why you are the best suited to both apply for SSI for the child and then to be the representative payee. And so we sit down and we write that out based on what it is that the person tells us. A child between the ages of 15 and 17 can apply on their own if they're not in the care of any person or institution and they don't have a court-appointed representative, like a legal guardian. I've had a handful of teenagers apply for themselves. It doesn't happen too often, but we can help in those cases. So these are some examples of qualifying disabilities. And I put this chart in here just to, get people thinking about what disabilities, will qualify a child for SSI. These are in order of the disabilities I see most often. And like I said, most SSI cases are based on mental health. Most of our clients have mental health issues. But this list obviously is not exhaustive at all. But just some examples: autism, ADHD, global developmental delay, intellectual disorder. This is also like processing disorder, speech and language disorder, all kind of fall under that umbrella. Depression, bipolar disorder, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorder, PTSD, oppositional defiant disorder, schizophrenia. I see somewhat often as well. PTSD should probably be higher on that list. I have a lot of clients who have diagnoses of PTSD, and that is, I would think, pretty common for children who have experienced homelessness. It is a source of great trauma, and a diagnosis of PTSD is pretty common for children who have had that experience. Though PTSD is actually on the rise with regard to SSI claims and its prevalence within the past, I think, 5 years. Social Security Administration has actually, it used to fall under, I think, anxiety disorders, but now post-traumatic stress disorder has its own listing, its own set of criteria for SSI purposes, because it has become that much more common. Like I said, this list is not exhaustive. This is just to get parents, caregivers, and providers thinking about the diagnoses that will qualify for SSI. A lot of times parents don't automatically think, oh, my child has pretty severe ADHD, he or she might qualify for SSI. However, ADHD can cause great deficits. And parents of children with ADHD do need a lot of extra help. So it's just often that connection between ADHD and SSI is not made until it is, that I kind of put that little bug in a parent's ear. So the stages of the SSI application process. At Legal Aid, we can help with any stage, with an application that is at any stage in this process. So obviously, most of our clients come to us at the initial application stage. Like I said, we're doing everything via phone these days. So we conduct an eligibility screening via phone that takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes. We will set that person for an appointment if they qualify. We can send out documents to be signed, because obviously everything still needs to be signed by the client. We can send it out either via mail or via DocuSign. And then from there, we set an initial appointment via phone that takes anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. We go through the application, we get all of the information that we need, demographic information about the family and about the person applying, and then disability related information about the child, as well as all the places he or she has received treatment and gone to school. We can file this application on behalf of the client. It takes about 2 to 4 months to get a decision on the initial application, and we see more than 30% of our initial applications are granted. If the initial application is denied, we file a reconsideration appeal. This is a written appeal. Basically, we tell Social Security Administration why it is that they're wrong, why they made the wrong decision the first time around. It takes about a month to 2 months. And as you can imagine, because we're just providing, updated information, most of our reconsideration appeals are denied. It's still the same thing. It's all via writing. We see about 10 to 12% of our reconsideration appeals are granted. The rest are denied. And the reason for that is it's we're asking them to, review everything, conduct the same process, and make a different decision. And most of the time they're like, no, we made the right decision the first time around. And this is right in line with the national average. I think we actually we may have more of our reconsideration appeals granted than is the overall average. But both for us and then for SSI cases in general, where it is that we have the best chance of success is at the hearing before the administrative law judge, because that is an in-person hearing. That is our first opportunity to be seen and to be able to explain to a person in person why it is that this child is disabled and qualifies for SSI benefits. About 50 to 60% of our cases are granted at the hearing level. If we get an unfavorable decision from the administrative law judge, we can file a written appeal to the appeals council. And honestly, we have about 25% of our cases are either sent back for another hearing, or the appeals council will reverse the decision of the judge. But if we don't like the decision that we get from the judge, obviously at every stage of this process, the client is the one who decides what we do. But we sit down with the client, especially after the unfavorable decision from the judge, and figure out, okay, do we want to appeal this application and this denial, or do we want to file a new application? Have things changed? Do we have a better chance of success on a new application? Did the judge commit an error of law? And then we kind of go forward that way based on what is best for that specific case. Obviously, the client at any time could say, I don't want to do this anymore. And obviously we have to respect that. Most of our clients, though, will continue at least through the appeals council appeal. We can file a complaint in federal district court if we don't like what the appeals council has to say, but we do that in very few cases. Those cases take a lot of time, and they don't focus as much on whether the client is disabled as they do on whether the judge, abused his discretion or committed an error of law. If we don't if we don't get a favorable outcome at the federal district court level, what we do is we can file an appeal to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Once again, we don't do that in many cases either, only in cases that are very strong. As a result, we have a near perfect success rate at the Ninth Circuit, but we just haven't taken many cases. We can take a case to the Supreme Court. We haven't done so. I don't even know what it would look like. That would just be so wild to me if we were actually filing an appeal of a Ninth Circuit decision and trying to go to the Supreme Court on one of our SSI cases. We can do it. We haven't done it. Hopefully, maybe in my time, somebody will do it, because I'd love to see that. But like I said, we can represent at any stage in this process, even if we did not file the initial application for the client. So how is it that Social Security Administration determines whether a child is disabled? Like I said, under age 18, they just look at, is the child disabled? So step one of the evaluation is the child working? Because obviously if the child is working and earning more than $1,300 per month, the child is not deemed disabled. Most of my clients obviously are not working. Even the ones who are earning less than this amount because they're mostly full-time students. And it's difficult to be a full-time student and also earn more than $1,300 a month. So the answer at this step is typically no, and then we move on to step two. Even if the answer is yes, they're typically earning less than $1,300 a month, so we still move on to step two. Step two, does the child have a severe medically determinable impairment? This is just they define it as an impairment that causes more than a slight abnormality and that causes more than functional limitations. Basically, is there a doctor somewhere in the records who has diagnosed this child with a disability? If the answer is yes, then we move on to step three. Really, that is all that step two is asking. Is there a diagnosis? So step three, obviously, is where we most often get tripped up. Does the child's condition meet the Secretary's listing of medical impairments? Social Security Administration has its own medical criteria that indicate the child would be considered disabled. They organize their quote unquote listings by systems of the body. And what they really focus on is, okay, at step two, we know that you have a diagnosis. Step three, does that diagnosis have serious or extreme limitations on your life? Does the diagnosis result in severe or extreme limitations in your life? Social Security Administration looks at the functional limitations caused by the disability. Does the child have a problem acquiring and using new information? Does the child have a problem attending and completing tasks, interacting and relating with others, moving about and manipulating objects, caring for himself or herself? And then does the child have a limitation in his or her health and physical well-being? They require that in at least two of those areas, there is a marked limitation, or in at least one of those areas, there is an extreme limitation, and then the child will be deemed medically eligible for SSI. So how is it that we prove childhood disability? Primarily, it's based on objective medical evidence. When we have a prospective client come to us, they sign all of our initial documents. One of those forms for us, and then one of the forms for Social Security Administration, is a medical records release form. So we have the client authorize us to request records from doctors, hospitals, and other medical facilities, speech therapy notes, occupational therapy notes, other behavioral intervention, talk therapy notes, notes from psychiatrists and psychologists, as well as medical source statements. These are forms that we draft and then have doctors fill out on behalf of our clients. We then submit them. And we like doing this because we use Social Security Administration's own language in those forms, and then have the doctors evaluate under those standards. So it's a combination for us of the objective medical records as well as the source statements that we have drafted, these like review forms that we have drafted. We rely on honest and objective notes and records. And that's how it is that we are going to get a child deemed disabled. We also rely on non-medical records, including most often education records, IEPs. Social Security Administration has its own teacher questionnaire that it sends out to the teacher who knows the child best. We rely on progress reports, disciplinary records, school evaluations, attendance records are big. We do rely on statements from parents and other caregivers. Obviously, the objective medical evidence and then the education records are a little bit more heavily weighted than statements from parents, but Social Security Administration does take those things into account. What I like to tell new clients is that they want to see that the doctor is saying the same thing as the parent, who is also saying the same thing as the teacher. They want to see that the child has disabilities across all of the areas of his or her life. Unfortunately, if the limitations are incredibly prevalent at home, but not in the classroom or in therapy, the child is not likely going to be deemed eligible for SSI. And that's just because either the agency deciding or the judge needs to be able to point to objective evidence in the record. Just like we can appeal an unfavorable decision that we receive from a judge to the appeals council will look at favorable decisions that the judges make, and they will just go through it and make sure that the decision is based on the evidence in the record. If it is not, then they will send it back for another hearing. So, I tell my clients, if we can't prove it through, objective documentation, like I believe you, I'm with you. I understand certainly what it's like to have kids with disabilities. But if we can't jump through that hoop of theirs, unfortunately, we're not going to win, which is why it is so important that parents keep their kids in consistent medical treatment, give them medication as prescribed, and do everything that it is that they can to, limit the effects of the disabilities. If all of those things are being done, if your kid is in consistent treatment and still is exhibiting all of these limitations as a result of their disability, that's when you apply for SSI, and then hopefully we are granted. We also rely on early intervention and preschool program records, and then obviously regional center records, the IPP and the IFSP as well are incredibly helpful. Once a child is deemed eligible for SSI and begins receiving benefits, Social Security Administration will bring their case up for review every so often. It seems like they bring up stronger cases less frequently. The more likely the child is to experience medical improvement, the more often they seem to bring up those cases. But there is no hard and fast rule. That's just kind of, what I have observed. But they will send a notice to the parent that the case is up for review. Benefits will not be terminated unless there is evidence of medical improvement and the condition no longer meets childhood disability criteria. Throughout this process, the parent has the right to have benefits continue to be paid. They need to request that benefits are paid within 10 days of receiving either that notice or an unfavorable decision on the review. they can file an appeal. They have 60 days to file an appeal, but you only have 10 days to file a request for payment continuation. And we always recommend that our clients request payment continuation throughout the disability process, as long as they still financially qualify for SSI and as long as they are using the money to care for their child. Even if at the end the child is taken off of benefits, they will not make you pay back that money. They try to send you scary letters, but there is a 10-page request for a waiver of overpayment form that we encourage our clients to fill out. We're not experts and we really can't file this form for them, but I have no problem sitting down with someone and helping them figure out what words they want to put on this form. But at the end of the day, what I tell them is, did you rely in good faith on this money? And did you use it to provide for your child? If you cannot pay back the money and file this form, they will not make you pay it back. I do tell parents, come to me as soon as you get that first notice that your kid's case is up for review, because then we can have you sign the medical records release forms. We can get updated provider information, get new medical records. We can have the parent give us all the information that they need to for us to fill out the function reports to let Social Security Administration know what the current deficits are, what the child's current diagnoses and limitations are. And then we can, nip the review process in the bud as soon as possible. Once we get into the process and they have made a decision that the child is no longer eligible for SSI, it just becomes a more longer drawn out process and more likely that the child is going to be terminated. The review process is the same as the application process with the addition of one additional hearing. So it does take a while, but the sooner clients get into us and let us know their case is being reviewed and they want our help, the sooner we're able to give Social Security Administration everything that they need to show, we don't have to go down this road again. The child is still disabled. And that is the best outcome for everyone. Like I said previously, once a child turns 18, they're automatically reevaluated under the adult standard. Social Security Administration, it's the same first 3 steps. What they then add is steps 4 and 5. Have you worked before and can you do your past work? Same notification process, same appeals process, same right to have benefits continue during the appeal. Under their rules, however, benefits cannot be terminated if the now adult is still enrolled in school with an IEP or is enrolled in a vocational rehabilitation program. The reason for that is, they are really focused on getting people to be able to work. And as long as the adult is either in school, in a work program, either they are eligible up until the time they turn 22 or they graduate from that program, with the idea that by being enrolled in these programs, they are going to learn the skills that they need to ultimately be able to work. SSI is meant to be a temporary benefit on the road to helping persons with disabilities become able to work. All our society cares about is whether you can work, and SSI is no different. So they will give you, your monthly benefit rate while you're in these programs, ultimately with the hope that one day you can work. A lot of times, we know it doesn't work that way. It's not always a temporary benefit. There are disabilities that are lifelong, but what I tell my clients is they cannot terminate you as long as you were, in this program, and they try to, but we go to them and provide them with all of the information that they need. Look, this child is still in school. He's 19. He's in an IEP program. Here is the proof of enrollment. Here's the proof of his enrollment in the IEP program. Don't terminate his benefits. And then they say, okay. So that's important to know because they don't tell you in any of the forms that they send out to you, oh, don't worry about this if you're still in school. So at this point, I like to include 3 client success stories. I've changed the names and identifying information to protect their identity. But this just shows the range of services we provide and the difference in cases where we are able to help. So this is little girl Eleanor. She was a 3-year-old girl with severe autism spectrum disorder. She was completely nonverbal, not yet toilet trained. She couldn't eat by mouth. She would spin in circles. She would engage in repetitive hand flapping behavior. She needed a very rigid and structured routine, and she would tantrum if she were forced to deviate from it. She did not like to be held. She would run out the door. She would bang her head. She would also punch, bite, and kick her mother. Unfortunately, a pretty common example of a severe case of autism spectrum disorder. Elle, her mother, and her brother lived in North County, and her mother had difficulty accessing activities and services for children with autism. Her initial application was granted in like 2 or 3 months in 2018, which is really remarkable because she was 3 years old and there were no education records. So this case was really a testament to, mom continuing to take her to treatment. We were able to get medical records. Her doctors filled out the review forms that we sent. We submitted all of the records that we got, and we got a decision very quickly, thankfully. Mom obviously was grateful. She used her monthly benefit to pay for transportation costs to and from activities. She paid for activity fees, obviously rent, food, and other expenses as well. But I think mom was able to get her into a dance class for kids with special needs and a like gymnastics class for kids with like sensory issues. And so she has now been receiving benefits for almost 3 years, which is awesome. We have brothers Marco and Oliver. They were granted SSI benefits while living in an apartment with both of their parents in Minnesota. SSI is a federal benefit. So, if they, were granted in Minnesota, once it is that they relocated here, the benefits should have continued. However, in this case, they should not have to reapply. The benefits should just continue. In this case, their father was deported when they were living in Minnesota, and their mother chose to relocate the family to Father Joe's so that the boys could take day trips to see their father in Tijuana. After moving, Social Security Administration pulled the boys' border crossing records, and they determined that they were non-residents, for SSI purposes, and they terminated their benefits. The mother came to me for help. At this point, they had gotten into housing. So after 2 months of going back and forth with the San Diego field office, I was able to provide Social Security Administration with every single shred of documentation that was needed to reinstate benefits. They were, living in the shelter. They had moved into housing. We provided everything from like a letter from the landlord in Minnesota stating, they lived there then and how long it was that they had lived there, that they left in, I think it was August, a letter from Father Joe's, a letter from like their caseworker. We had a copy of their lease once they moved into housing here, a letter from their landlord. We had school enrollment information. We had progress reports that showed that the children were attending school here. I think we had attendance records showing they were attending school here. We had a utility bill. We had medical records showing that they were getting medical care here. So we jumped through all of those hoops. Finally, Social Security Administration said, yep, you're right, they're residents. They gave us 4 months of back pay for each kid and then got them back on benefits. And so 4 months of back pay at the maximum benefit rate was like $7,000 or $8,000 that mom was able to get. And so they fortunately were able to get back on benefits once, we went back and forth for a while, with some folks at the San Diego field office that just, they had it in their system. They're looking line by line. Nope, they're not residents. The system is telling me they're not residents. But this is something that happens, or at least was happening more and more frequently. And these are cases that we can absolutely help in. I know what it is that, that the law says regarding residency, and I know what documentation is going to prove that the kids are residents. So these are cases we can help with. And then finally, there's little boy Alex. Alex is an 8-year-old boy who has PTSD. He was separated from his family after his father passed away. He and his siblings were taken to an orphanage in Tijuana. He was routinely abused by the staff and other children for nearly a year. Once he was reunited with his mother in San Diego, she applied for SSI benefits for him. He was denied at the initial and reconsideration stages. I took his case to hearing, and his mom won nearly $16,000 in back pay to provide for the help that he needs. The family lives down in San Isidro, and Alex needs treatment at least 3 times a week at Brady's on Kearney Villa Road. So mom was able to purchase a more reliable used vehicle, is able to pay transportation costs associated with driving from San Isidro to Kearney Mesa 3 times a week, and then other, disability and life related expenses. So why legal aid? Like I said, we assist and represent at any stage of the SSI application and appeal process. We also can help with continuing disability reviews and age 18 redetermination cases, even if we did not help the child get on benefits the first time around. All of our services are free, and that is the same for all of the attorneys who do this kind of work, even if they are private attorneys. But the difference is we do not take any percentage of the back pay that our clients are awarded, whereas private attorneys do. That's how they make their money. They can take up to 25% of the back pay that is awarded, or $6,000 of the award, whichever amount is less. So we are funded through the county, and I am paid through legal aid. I am not paid through my clients. So we have an interest in having clients come to us, doing a really good job on the initial application and getting it granted as soon as possible, so that we can get the client on benefits, get them out the door, and help the next person in line. Private attorneys, by contrast, want their cases to last as long as possible, because that's how they stand to make as much money as possible. So I would think that they do not work as hard up front. They want to take their cases to hearing, and they want to win at hearing. Here's the contact information for our team. The first is the general children's line. Anybody who calls into the line will either have one of our advocates, Elizabeth or Samantha, answer, or their voicemail will be returned, typically within 24 hours. I have our contact information for Elizabeth, one of our Spanish-speaking advocates, her direct line and her email address. And then there's my contact information at the bottom. I am one of 2 staff attorneys. There's my direct line and email address. I handle some initial applications and reconsideration appeals. I handle a lot of hearings, because the attorneys are the ones who do the hearings. And then I do the bulk of the outreach for our team. The other staff attorney in our team does a handful of initial cases, mostly hearings. And then the advocates do most of the initial application and reconsideration appeals. They will do nearly all of the intake and eligibility screening as well. And then they pass clients off to Andrew, the other staff attorney, and me when it is that they have too many cases. But right now I'm focusing mostly on outreach, and then hearings and applications. This is just our general disclaimer. None of this is intended to be specific legal advice. We haven't created an attorney-client relationship, all of that stuff. And then this is our contact information for our Mission Hills office. And then that number right there is the general legal aid line. That's 877 legal aid. And then that will get you to one of the advocates on the community response team. They'll be able to answer questions regarding the specific legal issue, whether it's something that we can help with. They screen for eligibility and then send the referrals off to the teams that can help. And if it's not something that we can help with, I'm fairly certain that they have a list of places to send folks if it's not a legal issue that we can help with. And that is all I have. I'm going to put the general legal aid line in the chat as well. Because I think that that's helpful to have.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. And excellent. I wanted to just say that we do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
And one of them is, if my child has an IAP for educational disability, do they qualify?
So they would not. would not automatically qualify for SSI because obviously, you know, it all depends on what the records show, but, you know, they would likely at least be able to apply, you know, educational disabilities, whether it's, you know, language disorder or, you know, attention, you know, issues that the child may have in school, whether it's, you know, reading or, developmental, disabilities, you know, that seems like it would be a good case to, take a, you know, a good reason to apply. Obviously, without knowing more, I can't, you know, we don't guarantee any outcomes in any cases, that we take. But, you know, most of the kids, you know, most of the clients that we have do have IEPs. So, they would likely qualify for, our services, at least with regard to the like medical condition that is being treated. You know, as long as they're receiving some sort of like services through school. Outside services would be helpful, would provide, us with more evidence and, you know, to bolster our claim. But, you know, education records, you know, it seems like would be sufficient, and would at least get us over that medical condition that is currently being treated threshold.
Perfect. So that's the one I see. The other one was a question for an adult, as an adult SSI case, but I think you don't deal with that. You deal only with the children's SSI cases.
So I would say call that general legal aid line. The community response advocate will just go through the threshold screening questions. And then, I think they send an email to the senior advocate on the SSI team for her to have one of her advocates reach out to you and schedule an appointment with you.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. It's
So
Great
the-
presentation. Thank you so much.
So the
Thank
one
you.
thing that is important to note is, if you are a child who has been granted SSI benefits under age 18 and then you turn 18, you are and you're still in school, you are still eligible for SSI benefits under, you know, the child disability standard, and they should not be reviewing your case. If you were not granted as a child, if you are an 18-year-old who is applying, who is still in school, you still have to meet the criteria of the adult disability standard. So they're going to ask you, have you worked? And then can you do, you know, their analysis will look at whether you can do your past work. But obviously most people who are 18 haven't really worked because they've been in school. So that's the like unfortunate part of like turning 18. If you weren't granted as a child, then you start, with the first, you know, application, the first, you know, having to prove disability under the adult standard, even though you're only 18 and probably haven't had a work history.
Perfect. And then the other question is, if they're able to get their child the SSI, well, how do they apply for the IHSS?
I'm sorry, I was reading a question. How to apply for IHSS?
Yes.
That would just be call the general legal aid line, tell the community response advocate, that they want to apply for IHSS. They'll screen for eligibility for the health team requirements, and then do the same thing, send an email to one of the advocates on that team, and then they'll reach out and schedule an appointment as long as the person meets legal aid eligibility criteria.
Perfect. And the other person is just asking to speak to you. So I'm assuming they've already got some kind of case going. So with that being said, I will be sending out the copy of this recording to everyone that attended, so that if you do need to reach out to anyone on Jennifer's team, you have all that information. I will also be sending it out, Jennifer, to a number of the clients that asked for the recording because they were working. So you'll probably get some responses from others that were not on here today. I'm sure my team or my colleagues will also be doing the same. So hopefully you'll start to get all of the individuals that are in need of the service in the next couple of days.
So
Okay.
our county contract, they want us to talk to as many people as possible. They want us to like screen for eligibility, see, conduct consultations. They also want us to file a certain number of like applications each year to make sure that, we are a worthwhile investment. So please contact me if you have any questions. Please do not disqualify yourself based on any of the information that I provided. If you think you might qualify, contact me. If you think, oh, I'm not sure if I qualify, contact me. If you think I don't qualify, contact me, because there may be some sort of exception that wasn't discussed. Obviously, this is an hour-long presentation. This is a good overview, but it's not exhaustive by any means. So please just contact me if you have any questions.
Perfect.
Thank you
I
very
love
much.
this. Thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
Jennifer, hopefully we can look at another one of these workshops maybe in a couple more months, maybe in
That'd be
May.
great. Yeah,
Mhm.
sure. Just let me know.
Correct.
I'm available.
All right,
Excellent.
perfect.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Have a
thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for
Great
attending. We'll be talking
presentation.
to you
you.
soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.